Okay, gonna open my notes and let's get into this. So, as you probably guessed from the title, we're going to be talking about PG-13 horror movies, specifically 13 of the ones that I love. So these are the videos that I put on when I want to watch something spooky, for the vibes, but without the guts and gore. Like if I'm eating or something, I don't want to watch like Hostel, you know? First movie we're going to be talking about is The Ring, specifically the American version. I've never seen the original, so this movie was made in 2002. A journalist must investigate a mysterious videotape that seems to cause the death of anyone 1 week to the day after they view it. I know a lot of people include this in their favorite PG-13 horror movies, and that's because, you know, it's a staple in the genre. It's really good. I think Samara is one of the most iconic horror villains, specifically in the PG-13 subcategory. I think she's really good. One of the things that I really enjoy about this is the lighting in this movie. It's very blue, very gloomy. It takes place in Seattle, and I just think that the blue tint to it adds to like the horror element, in my opinion. I didn't think blue could be scary, but it really is in this movie. I think that you guys would enjoy this. If you haven't seen a horror movie before, this might be a good place to start for you if you don't like gore. Alright, number 2 on my list is Insidious. This one's kind of a cheat because I think it's really scary because of a score that they have. It kind of like jumps out at you from the very beginning of the movie. It horrified me when I saw it in theaters for the first time. Anyway, I'll get to my thoughts on it in a second. A family looks to prevent evil spirits from trapping their comatose child in a realm called the Further. So this movie scared me more than I thought it would. Specifically, there's like a main demon in it, and their lair, for whatever reason, really scares me. Like, it made my chest tighten. I don't know, it felt like I might have been there before. I know that's not possible, it's not real, but you know, it's like that kind of fear. And I remember I went to Halloween Horror Nights in like 2012, I think, and they had an Insidious maze, and it scared the fuck out of me. Sorry, don't know if I can cuss. It's my channel, I'll cuss. It scared me so bad, like, I was panicking, and that doesn't happen to me a lot, because I really like horror. Nothing really scares me, with the exception of, like, zombies, but that's, like, childhood shit I'll tell you about later. Yeah, I think this one's good for a scare. It might not scare everyone, but, you know, James Wan is a pretty good recent horror director, so it does have a lot of jump scares, though, fair warning if you're not into that, but that's what makes this movie scary. Number 3 on the list is Shudder 2008, specifically the American version, just because I saw this one first. It takes place in Japan, even though the movie, I believe, is a Thai movie originally. Make it make sense? I don't know. A newly married couple discovers disturbing, ghostly images in photographs they develop after a tragic accident. Fearing the manifestations may be connected, they investigate and learn that some mysteries are better left unsolved. This movie is full of mystery and paranormal phenomenon. I don't believe there's like a lot of jump scares. It's like subtle scares, like you can see them kind of coming and they lead to something bigger. So I really like that. It gives me like Nancy Drew meets Paranormal Activity vibes. It's really fun. I think you should watch it. The next one is a first watch for me actually this month. I'll be talking about it more in depth in my video next month about what I watched in February, my Letterboxd recap. It's Stay Alive from 2006. I just thought it was a really interesting concept. For a group of teens, the answer to the mystery death of their old friend lies within the world of an online video game, based on the true story of an ancient noblewoman known as the Blood Countess. This movie gets so much shit, and surprisingly it's not for Frankie Muniz. I'll go more into that in a different video, but it gets shit on so much, and I actually really enjoyed this movie. I mean, it's not good. It's not like a piece of cinematic art or anything. It's definitely a popcorn movie, but it's very entertaining, and you get a couple of scares, and I think it's fun to put on if you're just like doing something else or you can't find anything to watch. Okay, number 5 on our list is The Others, starring Nicole Kidman. A woman who lives in her darkened old family house with her 2 photosensitive children becomes convinced that the home is haunted. So that description really doesn't do this movie justice, but I don't want to spoil anything. Um, my mom had this on DVD when I was a little kid, and when she was at work, I would sneak watch it, and it terrified the hell out of me. It's so scary. I watched it, I think, within the past year or so, and it holds up. It still scares me as an adult. I don't know if that's just like carrying over from my childhood, but there's a couple of twists in it that will have you checking your pulse. It's a very good movie, very sneaky. You don't know what it's about until the last part of the film. You think you know, but you don't know. It's really good. It's a really good haunted house movie. Okay, so I believe this is number 6 on the list. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, not the TV show, the movie. A flighty teenage girl, Buffy Summers, learns that she is her generation's destined battler of vampires. So before Sarah Michelle Gellar blessed the world with her performance as Buffy Summers on her hit TV show on Fox, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, we did get this movie in 1992. It is a horror comedy. It feels like it belongs in the 80s rather than the 90s. The big bads in this movie are so comedic. Everyone is so funny in this. There's a lot of physical comedy too, just like in the TV show Buffy. But if you've seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV show, I definitely recommend watching its predecessor, the movie, that gave the TV show something to go off of. It's by no means good, but like in a good way. Like, it's a good movie, but it's not a good movie. Do you know what I'm saying? Number 7, we have Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Upon arriving in a small town where she has inherited a rundown mansion, a famous horror hostess battles an evil uncle and townspeople who want to burn her at the stake. This is another comedy horror movie. It stars Elvira, who is a 80s horror icon. She got famous by hosting local television show in Los Angeles in the 80s. She basically just commentaried over really bad horror films at the time, and she just made fun of them, and it was really funny and enjoyable. And she got to make a couple of her own movies, I believe, and she is still active today. She actually hosted the Hocus Pocus 2 reunion that happened in 2020. It was like a fundraiser thing. It was a really fun time. So in this film, Elvira and her velvet sofa take a break from the commentary, and she steps on the silver screen herself. Again, this one isn't really full of scares. It's mostly a comedy that has like horror elements. Not really. It's just the fact that she's a horror icon that I'm including it on this list. I swear, that was the last horror comedy on the list. The rest are actually scary. Number 8 is The Haunting in Connecticut. Based on a chilling true story, this movie charts one family's terrifying real-life encounter with the dark forces of the supernatural. When the Campbell family moves to upstate Connecticut, they soon learn that their charming Victorian home has a disturbing history. Not only was the house a transformed funeral parlor, where inconceivable acts occurred, but the owner's clairvoyant son, Jonah, serves as a demonic messenger, providing a gateway for the spiritual entities to cross over. This movie scared the absolute fuck out of me. It is really scary. I mean, I haven't seen it in a couple of years. Maybe I'm building it up in my head, but it scared the absolute shit out of me, especially the basement scenes. I grew up watching the television show. It's kind of like a haunting or celebrity ghost story, that kind of formatted show. I think it was just called Haunting in Connecticut. So I don't know if that contributed to it. I already knew the story of the Campbell family before I saw this movie because I grew up watching it. So it is really, really scary, I will say. There are also themes of cancer in it, so if that's something that triggers you, don't watch this movie. But I really think it's really scary, especially with the lights off if you're home alone. Number 9 on this list is When a Stranger Calls. Far away from the site of a gruesome murder, a teenage girl named Jill Johnson arrives at a luxurious home for a babysitting job. With the children fast asleep, she settles in for what she expects to be an ordinary evening. Soon, the ringing of a phone and the frightening words of a sadistic caller turn Jill's routine experience into a night of terror. So, I believe everyone, with the exception of maybe Gen Alpha, has heard of the story of the babysitter, right? The babysitter and the stranger calling. I'm not going to spoil it if you don't know it. But this is based off of that urban legend. This movie has, I'm specifically talking about, I believe, the 2006 version. This version has horrible reviews, really, really bad reviews, which I don't get because I think it's really scary and fun. And I remember watching this as a kid and it scaring me. If home invasion, like The Strangers, is like terrifying for you, this is a movie that will scare you. That's PG-13. I would say it's similar to The Strangers actually, but a PG-13 version. So it's lighter, especially for you younger people wanting to get into horror. I would recommend When a Stranger Calls, the 2006 version. Number 10, I think, is 1408. A man who specializes in debunking paranormal occurrences checks into the fabled room 1408 in the Dolphin Hotel. Soon after settling in, he confronts genuine terror. So this is based off of a Stephen King short story. So if you like Stephen King, he also wrote It, Cujo, Misery, really classic pieces of horror literature that have been adapted to great movies. You would probably like this one. It all takes place in one room for the most part, which is actually terrifying for me. It feels very claustrophobic, and the practical effects in this are amazing. I think at one point they flood an entire hotel room. I don't know how many times they must have had to rebuild this set, but it's so good. It's so good just for the effects alone. I definitely recommend watching this film. Number 11, I Am Legend. A brilliant scientist is a survivor of a man-made plague that transforms humans into bloodthirsty mutants. He wanders alone through New York City, calling out for other possible survivors, and works on finding a cure for the plague using his own immune blood. So I am personally horrified of zombies. One of the first nightmares I ever had actually was of zombies, like tearing me apart. I was a child, mind you, on the Las Vegas Strip for some reason. I don't know why it took place in Las Vegas. I'm from California. I don't understand it, but that's one of my first nightmares, and ever since then, zombies are like my worst nightmare. If there is a zombie apocalypse, I'm out for the count. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not going through it. I'm not even going outside to see it. As soon as it's on the news, I'm done. And this film specifically has like the scariest zombies that are like, I guess they're mutants, but like they're zombie-esque, zombie adjacent. They're like super fast, they're smart for the most part, and they have like super strength. So that's a no from me, chief. The next movie I have on this list technically isn't a horror movie. It's like a thriller drama, but I really like it. It's called Enough. Working class waitress Slim, played by Jennifer Lopez, finds herself transformed when she marries a wealthy contractor named Mitch. She settles into an idyllic suburban life and seems to have everything she wants. Her dreams are shattered when she discovers her husband is anything but perfect. His abusive behavior forces her to go on the run, eluding an increasingly obsessive Mitch and his lethal henchmen. This movie kicks ass. Jennifer Lopez is badass. It's so fun. It's a story about like overcoming abuse and like female empowerment. but there's a lot of action sequences. It's so fun, and there's a lot of like really like tense scenes that will scare you. Technically it's not a horror movie, but I think it has a lot of horror attributes, and I think any horror lover would like it, especially since it has a PG-13 rating. Number 13 is The Visit. A single mother sends her 2 young children to visit their grandparents on a remote Pennsylvania farm for a week-long trip. But the children discover the elderly couple is involved in deeply disturbing activity, and the youngsters' chances of getting back home look less and less likely with every minute that passes. So this movie is very disturbing and has a lot of like subtle horror until it's no longer subtle. The scene under the house scared me the most. Like, I screamed. It was horrifying. The general concept of this movie is really, really scary. Like, imagine the grandparents that you know and love from your entire life. Okay? All of a sudden, spider crawling on the ceiling towards you. Yeah, no, fuck that. I'm out. No. Well, there you guys have it. That was 13 PG-13 horror movies that I love. If I missed any, if you think that there's other ones that would be really good for this list, go ahead and leave them down in the comments. I'm definitely into PG-13 horror movies, especially like 2000, 2010 vibes, really good. Let me know if you don't like any of these movies. Let me know why in the comments below, or let me know if you do like these movies and what you like about them. Please don't put spoilers. If you do, put a spoiler warning. Alright, thanks guys. Bye.